Hi, I'm Bob Hanna, and I've been a factory motocross racer for about 10 years now. Before that, I rode about 17 years in the desert just playing around. In the last 10 years, I've had a lot of fun and raced all over the world. European countries, Japan, United States, some good courses in the United States, Unadilla, Carlsbad, Saddleback, Gatorback, and won a few championships. I've won Supercross Championship 3 times. 250 National Championship 2 times, 125 Championship, Trans AMA Championship. And in the past 10 years, I've learned to set up a motorcycle fairly well for an expert rider. And we're going to go over a little bit of that right now. Basically, front forks and rear suspension. And tires are a rider's choice, but definitely want a hard track tire on a hard track and a sand tire on a sand track. It makes a lot of difference in the way the bike performs. Front forks, there's three things that make up the settings on them. Is the oil level, the spring, and the preload on the spring. Or some forks do use a little air, but they've gotten away from that in the recent years. The preload is the beginning, the spring is the middle of the stroke, and the oil level is the bottom of the stroke. And the more oil you add, the stiffer the ending is. And in the spring settings, you can run either soft, medium, or hard, and then run the preload according to the weight of the rider. Rear suspension, nowadays, this is an 85 production Honda. They have compression dampening and rebound dampening at the turn of a screwdriver. The spring, you could either set more tension on or less tension on to get the right amount of sack out. They usually run about 100 millimeters of sack in the rear, and depending on the weight of the rider, you'll have to adjust the spring preload. Brakes are big, important on a motocross bike for an expert rider. The brakes should be fairly tight, not too tight where they would drag on the rear. The front brakes should be tight enough where a guy could use 2 fingers and be possible to stand the bike on the front wheel coming into a corner if it thought necessary.
In the dry, and now it's wet, and they may not be used to it. Hurricane looked as though he was going to pass him, then went high on the berm, using that same technique as Jeff Wood, looking as though he's trying to get some momentum, get his revs up for a double.
Both times, Kenny Keelan has jumped out in front of him and has cut off that double.
Final lap now.
They're coming around, going over some of those tough mountains, and let's see if they're affected at all on this last lap by the sand.
I think Hurricane Hanna got a little more height than he wanted on that last jump.
They want to try in this weather, especially with the humidity, not to get in the air too much. And we're having some overtaking maybe coming down around the back. Hanna and Keelan, we've got a big pilot. And Keelan was knocked out. Keelan is down. He's going to get back on his bike. Glover passes him. Keelan gets it started. He wants to finish in the 8th. And Hurricane Hanna is in front, and he will probably take the checkered flag. He's looking back. He knows he's got plenty of room, but he's looking back to make sure that his teammate is all right.
Tough break for Kenny Keelan, but that's what the pressure of Hurricane Hanna does to a rider.
And Keelan will probably now finish out of the 8th. He will have to work his way back through. We've got the white flag now. We've got one more lap to go.
And Kenny Keelan went down again going through the whoop-de-doos, but it's just amazing the kind of pressure that Hurricane Hanna can apply.
There's Hurricane, and he just simply has to ride the storm out. Brock Glover is on his heels, but nowhere near close enough. It would take the same type of thing that happened to the youngster, Kenny Keelan, for Hanna to lose it. You saw him go for the 2 there. Around the back, and here comes the Hurricane, wanting to take the checkered.
A slower rider getting in his way. Hurricane Hanna knowing he has it wrapped up, but not wanting to fool around going through the whoop-de-doos.
And I think the problem back there that occurred when Keelan lost it, a squid, one of the slower riders, I believe, caused that pileup that knocked Kenny out of the lead. Here comes the Hurricane.
ボブ・ハンナ、1956年カリフォルニアに生まれる。現在のアメリカを代表するモトクロスライダー。 その技とスピードはアメリカ史上最強と言われている。豪快でしかも華麗な走りを見せるボブ・ハンナ。1976年19歳の時に AMA モトクロス 125cc クラスのチャンピオンになって以来、毎シーズン必ず 2,3 回のチャンピオンシップを獲得。1978年には23連勝という伝説的な記録を樹立。アメリカモトクロス史上唯一のスーパークロス、ナショナルトランス、AMA の三冠王をはじめとしてほとんどのタイトルを独占。ハリケーンハンナの異名を世界に轟かせ、現在もなおアメリカモトクロス史上最多優勝記録を更新し続けている。コーナーをテールスライドで切り抜ければ次のコーナーへの最短距離。カウンターやジャンプのように派手なテクニックではないが、パーフェクトな走りをするためにぜひマスターしたい。コーナーに入りクラッチを切る。そしてリアブレーキを強くかける。後輪をロックさせコーナーに沿って回る。立ち上がりにかけてはハンクラッチを使う。ブレーキターンでのライディングポジションとしては、後輪が流れても安定した姿勢、シートの先端に腰を移動、後輪を流れやすくする。そして外側の足で倒し込む。上体の前後の移動によるトラクションの変化でターンの角度、テールのスライドを調整する。
The 2 double jumps. Okay, it's 4 jumps you want to turn into 2. Initially, the first thing you do is get up all the momentum and speed you need to go over all 2 at a time before you hit the jump. You want all your speed coming up. You want the right speed set up coming down the straightaway. As you initially come up the jump, you want right in the middle of the bike. So if you need to stand it on the rear or let the front end down, you can do so from the middle of the bike. If you're too far back, you'll usually end up like this. And once you've got your speed down, you go up the jump, then you just let off. Basically, you want to let off. You want to let the nose drop down, go in the next one, give a little bit of throttle, and then clear the next one. Basically, you don't want to double. You want to pick the front end up, wheelie as far as you can, drop the front end down in a small one. You don't want to drop it down in a big one. And then pick it up immediately again, wheelie again as long as you can, set it down and wheelie out. So if you could do a 1 wheelie all the way through, that'd be great, but most people can't. You want to wheelie, set it down, wheelie, set it down, and wheelie out. Riding over a big jump is the same as riding over a small jump. It's just a psychological barrier that you're flying through the air so far and you're scared. Doesn't matter if you fly 10 feet or 100 feet, the same thing is true. You leave the ground in the middle of the bike. If the bike starts to drop down, you turn it wide open and bring it back up, and if it's too high, you shut off. And you stay in the middle of the bike. When landing, you want to land either nose down a little bit or rear down a little bit. You don't ever want to land flat because you bounce too hard, you hit too hard. That's all.
スキージャンプとよく似たハンナジャンプは踏切から着地までの一連の動きを計算し尽くしたジャンプ。体重移動、脱重、トラクションのかけ方のコンビネーションが最もスムーズで完成された高度なジャンプです。さらに大きな特徴として、着地時にマシンがどんなに立ってしまっても状態をかぶせることによって難なく着地できる。すなわち許容範囲が広く、急角度のジャンプでも思い切って踏み切ることができる。
A tabletop jump like this, you never want to go. If you go too slow, it's no problem. If you go too slow, you land up on top and then right off the other end. You never want to go too fast. You want to start out slow, get your speed up that you think's right. Start out slow. If you hit short, you keep going and going and going until you get it just right. Never go too fast the first time and hit over on the flat. You always, eventually, you want to get where you go up one side, clear it, and land on the downside.
して一斉にスタート。まずは05番のボブ・ハンナがなかなかいいスタートを切りました。しかし
スタート、それはレースを大きく左右します。スタート地点の路面状態、シフトアップのタイミングの把握、いかに素早い加速をするかはスタートからの加速が基本。そして第1コーナーまでに良いポジションを得られればレースは有利に展開します。
素晴らしいスタート、ハリケーン、素晴らしいスタートを切りましたゼッケン05番のボブ・ハンナ。まずはスパッと一歩前に出てまいりました。
崖登りやクレパス越え、 これは今から10年ほど前にハンナが始めた練習方法。今ではアメリカンライダーの練習方法としてポピュラーになってきました。ちょっとしたミスでも大怪我につながりかねないこの練習方法は、ただ単に度胸をつけるだけではなく、ここからパーフェクトなテクニックの数々が生み出されるのです。アメリカンモトクロスプロフェッサーの第一人者ゲイリー・ベイリー曰く、ハンナはトラクションの使い方、それに伴うアクセルワークの世界一の名手であり、私の教えを超える唯一のライダーだと。ハンナはよく大地からのパワーとしてトラクションの重要性を主張します。そして彼のテクニックはこのトラクションの全てをマスターした上でのものなのです。彼は世界に5人と一周できるライダーはいないという角度60度、そして落差100メートルの崖のあるコースを自ら持ち、木や岩を縫いながらの練習をしているのです。
The best things that experts can do to become better is practice for sure, but the best 3 or 4 things to do is become an expert on the front brake, use it and use it well, knees tight to the tank and to the seat all the time. Don't like this, but knees tight all the time. Standing up all the time, keep your feet out from hanging like this, keep your feet up like this, knees tight, stand up, and never sit down unless you're turning a corner. If you're coming into a corner, you're standing up till the last minute, you sit down, you turn the corner, you're immediately back up off the seat. The bike handles a lot better when your butt's not on the seat. And that's about it.
モトクロス、それは未舗装の荒れた大地、ギャップありジャンプありのコースをたった一人で全力走破する人間の限界を超えるアクションとスピードのスポーツです。キャタピラのような伸びタイヤが大地を削り、自然の衝撃が体にストレートに伝わってくる。精神力と体力の極限で争うモトクロス。自然のままの大地でスピードを競う以上、オールラウンドの体力が要求されます。そして強靭な精神力がプラスされ、そこで初めてパーフェクトなテクニックが発揮できるのです。マシンとライダーが一体にならなければ最大限のパワーは発揮できません。一瞬のためらいでもライディングは微妙に変わってしまいます。モトクロス、これほどヒューマンなスポーツが他にあるでしょうか。